And now, for the moment you've all been waiting for. Probably the only reason why you still sitting here looking at me. I finally get to address what happened at WERQ 92Q radio station. The reason why I never spoke on it before is because I was told, and I'm not gonna say who I was told this by, but if I spoke on it, I might get the guys who hosted the morning show in trouble to the point where they might lose their morning show. But now, due to the fact that it's now the Ricky Smiley morning show, so they're not the radio morning show anymore, I don't think that they could lose their morning show anymore, then it's already lost. And shout out to everybody. I love y'all. That's the reason why I never spoke out. So anything I say is out of love. But the real situation, the real deal is this. Probably about a month before that radio interview even took place, as a matter of fact, it was the Super Bowl Sunday, whatever week the Super Bowl was, this is the week that I made the decision. Because what initially happened, Jazz and I sang on a record from a guy from Baltimore, a very talented vocalist named Tony Curtis. Tony Curtis has the ability to, he's a producer and songwriter and a artist. So he has the ability to sound like a lot of people. So Jazz and I sung on, he remade the Temptations or the Whispers song called Happy Holidays, which is a Christmas song. So when he did the song, Jazz and I were already singing on it. The voice that he chose to use for that particular record, because he could change his voice at will. He does an excellent Michael Jackson, a real cool, real great version of R. Kelly, and many others that you probably would know. And he could, if you close your eyes, you would think that person was in the room. So the choice of voice that he chose for this particular song was real close to Cisco. So when he did the record, and the radio station played it, because I think that the radio station, one of the radio stations here commissioned him to give them a holiday record. And that's why he went and did it. So people thought that, they mistakenly thought, because they heard my voice, they heard Jazz's voice, and they heard a voice that sounded close to Cisco, they thought that it was the group again. So it started to be like a little buzz. Like, I don't think it got far out of Baltimore, but in this area it was a little buzz behind the record. And then they asked him, they said, we need a name for the artist. So when we play this record, are we gonna say Tony Curtis Friends? We gonna say this, that, and the other? So whatever way it ended up happening, I don't know how it happened, but the name that was given to them was DH2. And people, I guess, took that to mean that it was like Dru Hill, a second coming or something like that. So out of that, I get a phone call from Noak, which was wild because Cisco and I, through a mutual female friend, had started hanging out again. We hadn't hung out in a while. And we started hanging out like kind of regularly. I would come past the house and just hang out, you know, him, and it would always be other people there, like other, like some females, some nice sights to see or whatever. A couple of his homies would be there, whatever. I'll bring a couple of my homies and he'd say, come, let's hang out, and they got the pool open or whatever like that. And we'd bring some beers or whatever we brought with us, and we would just chill for real. And to get a call from Noak, I hadn't really heard from Noak since, you know, we were doing the group stuff. And I hadn't really heard from Jazz too much, you know, but me and Cisco was hanging, and he actually was doing his solo stuff, and he hired me because I had did some stuff over in Germany. I had got asked to come over to Germany, and I did like one show, but it got put up on YouTube. And as with the same way how people send me stuff whenever the group is doing stuff, I guess they send them stuff if they hear about me doing anything. So the word got back to Cisco about that show, and he was like, I like the way that you dress when you over there. He's like, who picked your clothes or whatever? I say, me. So he said, well, would you mind dressing me and my dancers for the shows that we got coming up? So I actually had a job with him. Like, I was working with him as a solo artist. I was dressing Cisco and his dancers. I was like a stylist, which is something that I always wanted to do, something that I always liked, clothes and fashion and stuff like that. But he actually gave me a job doing that, and I'm grateful to him for it. I thank you for giving me the opportunity and trusting me to dress you guys. And the pictures and stuff is online. I got a lot of good reviews about it. But anyway, to get back to the story, Note asked me if he was to move back to Baltimore, would I be willing to do the group again? And at that time, I was like, okay, because what happened, let's go back a little teeny bit before that. After the third album, the one when it was 5 of us in the group, Cisco loves to say that the reason why became a solo artist was because I left the group. And that may or may not be true. I can't dispute that, but I can say that I wasn't the one who decided to stop doing shows after that third album. And even to the point where we had a meeting with Matthew Knowles, Beyonce's dad, about being interested in doing something with us, and Cisco didn't show up. And then turned around and it was excuse me, we had a opportunity with Def Jam again, and we went up to the meeting. But then when we got back home, we were recording in his basement, the Dragon's Lair. We were in his basement recording, and everybody else managed to get vocals on the song but him. So when people from the label were calling to see what we had to play for them, and it was nothing with his voice on there, and when you are the focal point of the group and you are the lead singer of the group and the face of the group or whatever, if you're not on it, then that's kind of crazy to turn in a record without you on there. So we ended up getting dropped by Def Jam for being non-productive and destructive, because we couldn't get one song done with you on there. So it's not just me that made some deals not go through, or made some stuff not happen by deciding that it wasn't time to do the group. And I don't know your reasoning. I can't question your reasoning. Just like you didn't understand my reasoning, I didn't understand your reasoning at the time. So probably just best conversations that would be had between us, and not with the Breakfast Club and the whole rest of the world. You know, it's that type of stuff. But anyway, okay, so Nogue asked me that, and I said, okay, cool, you know. And then we had to convince Jazz, because Jazz at that point was just living, you know, like everybody else. He felt like I got to put out my solo project, for better or for worse. Cisco put out 2 solo projects, for better or for worse, and he never got to put out his or whatever. So he wasn't really feeling. Then after that gap, when we all just got the rug swept under our feet from doing the shows that we was doing, excuse me, then everybody was just doing what they had to do to survive. Everybody went into their own world. I had came across some guys who, a guy who's a producer who was showed interest in working with me on my solo project, another gospel project. I don't know what Jazz was doing, but he wasn't feeling it. So I was the one who reached out to Jazz and basically convinced him. And I felt really bad when I watched the Platinum House show that they had on Centric, because Jazz actually said in one of the interviews, like, Wood convinced me to come back, and then he didn't even come back. Because it was like I had intentions on doing it, but I had questions. So what really made me decide to not do it is one day, because our publishing was never right. And when Note told us, like, if you guys focus on the singing and make sure we good in that department, I'm gonna focus on the business and make sure we right in that department. But from the results, like the good book say, you'll know them by their fruits. So from the results and the way things happen, Note Publishing ended up being straight, but ours wasn't. So, I mean, I don't blame Note, and like he said, I'm not the guy. If you meant me, maybe you didn't mean me, but if you did, I'm not a guy who's sitting around all day on the internet or anywhere talking about anybody ruined my life. One thing I will say, if anything, what they say, charge it to the game, and that's a blessing to me. I learned what being too trusting of any individual could do, or any group of people could do. I learned that you're supposed to do your homework, because the same amount of time that you had to learn the business the way that you did, and I give you nothing but credit and respect for that. The same way that you had to learn the business, I had that same time. But I chose to be sitting somewhere learning runs or studying my favorite writers and trying to be a better songwriter and a singer, when something that you used to say all the time, the biggest thing in music business, the word business is bigger than the word music. So I should have been taking heed. So I'm definitely not saying that you ruined my life or anything like that. I didn't ruin my life, because I'm still here through the grace of the Most High, and I feel like I'm cool, I make it. I'm not sitting around begging. I'm not sitting there with a change cup in my hand or nothing like that. And I only catch the bus because I don't drive. I've never driven in my life, so that's not, and that shouldn't be a barometer if somebody doing bad or not anyway. Like, you look online, and I've seen an interview with J. Cole, and he said he ride a bicycle. And then you see Keanu Reeves on the subway in New York City. So only small-minded people think because they see somebody on the bus, they don't have nothing. That's just another little side note. But anyway, back to the story. he asked about the group. So finally we convinced Jazz to get on board. I'm on board. But then we had a meeting one day. We were sitting in Cisco's house, and I started asking questions about the publishing. And the only person who really could have had any real answers, who was the only person that was in contact with the people who controlled our publishing, was Noak. So I'm sitting with the rest of the guys, and they like, ask Noak when he get here. So when I asked Noak what was up with our publishing, Noak's response to me was, I'm going to 7-Eleven, do anybody want anything? So at that point, I was like, okay, this ain't what I want to be doing. But once again, I'm a softie. I can't bring myself to say what I need to say. So fast forward back to where I was, the Super Bowl came on that year, and there was a commercial for, I think it's a company called careerbuilder.com. And there was a female sitting at a desktop computer, and she was typing, and she was at her job, and she looked miserable. So her heart jumped out of her chest, wrote on a piece of paper, I quit, and walked it into her boss. And when I saw that, that touched my heart. And I called one of the guys from a group from here called the Choir Boys, who were gracious enough to come on tour with me. 3 of them were gracious enough to come on tour with me for my gospel and sing background for me. And I kind of developed good relationships with them through that. And I called up the one that I called my big brother, his name's Marty. And I said, Marty, I don't want to be in the group anymore, but I feel like if I don't do the group, then everybody's going to be mad at me and say that I'm the one that messed the group up. He said, well, if you feel the way you feel, I was telling him a bunch of spiritual convictions that I felt that I'm not going to go into right now. But he said that if it's like that, then who would you rather have mad with you, people or God? And when he said that, that solidified it. So I was at my laptop, and I emailed each member of the group and told them that I was not going to be participating in the next project. Mind you, this is a month before the 92Q incident. So they asked me, said, we about to go do this show in wherever they was doing the show at. So could you just come on the radio and let everybody know this is how you feel, so that they won't be expecting to see you when we get down here to this show. So I agreed to do that. I showed up at the radio. I didn't know what exactly they had in mind. Next thing I know, I'm sitting there with my iPod, jamming, sitting there by myself, because I don't know how everybody feel about me. This is probably the first time. No, it's not the first time I saw everybody in person since then, because I was still doing the stylist work and dressing them for shows and stuff like that. But it was just a different atmosphere. So when we got there, Note came up to me and was like, yo, I'm gonna act like I'm trying to fight you. I'm gonna grab you. Please don't hit me for real. And that was the premise before we went into the 92Q interview. So I knew that it was gonna be something. I'm a big wrestling fan. I know that some of them, Cisco is some sort of wrestling fan, because he actually got to go to the shows and stuff when he was doing his solo, when he was doing his thing big time. And so anyway, I just played along. And then the next thing, I kind of looked at it like, I didn't want to do that. It seemed kind of stupid to me. I've never been with extra drama. I just wanted the music to speak for itself, talent to speak for itself. I thought it was stupid, but I kind of looked at it like when you do, when you're in college and you're in the fraternities or whatever like that. I've never been in one, but from what I hear, like you have to go through some type of thing to get into it where you might get humiliated. Like some people wear baby pampers, or they get called these stupid names and they got to answer to these names and stuff in order to be a part of a fraternity, sorority, whatever the case may be. So I looked at that as like even like gangs, like there's like blood in and blood out. I'm like, okay, this is my out. I'm gonna allow y'all to have this one, allow us to make this fiasco at the radio station and stuff like that. And this is gonna be it. After that, y'all gonna leave me alone. Y'all gonna create the great music that I know you guys could create. Teo is, even before being in the group, has been one of my favorite singers, signed or unsigned. So I knew when they made the decision to have him in the group that it was gonna be great music created. So I was excited for them. And so I was cool with that, So I figured that from then on out, it was gonna be about the great music and about Teo, the new member. But then every interview that I happened to see after that, I turned into interviews as a fan, because even though I didn't want to be a part of it anymore, I was still a fan of the music that we were able to create, and following in the footsteps of Jodeci, my favorite group, and being able to see them flourishing into their own and doing that thing and doing shows with the people that we grew up wanting to be like, doing shows with Jodeci, Boys Men, and all these folks. I'm happy for them. But then every time I turn on the interview, I'm the butt of jokes and no talking like we really was scrapping and fighting, talking about, oh yeah, I did what I had to do and balling his fist and doing this. I'm like, where's this coming from? Like, not saying that I'm no tough guy and I beat up nobody, nothing like that, but it wasn't like that. You know it wasn't like that. So why not, when that question come up, just say what Cisco said, well, he's not here to speak for himself, you know? Why not leave it at that? But instead of making it into a whole thing and a whole scenario that it really wasn't, that all of us know that it wasn't. The fans might not know it wasn't, but if y'all got sense, man, well, I can't even say if y'all got sense, y'all know people don't start fighting like that. No cuss words being uttered, then everybody just, next second, everybody grabbing and doing this. Come on, man. Y'all know that wasn't real. Come on, man. Just stop it, please. Make great music, man. Be great. Y'all guys are talented and great. I love y'all's talent, you know? I'm grateful for y'all's talent. Leave me alone, y'all. That's all I'm saying. For real.